Coming up next on Arizona Horizon, we'll have a full analysis of yesterday's Arizona election results, and we'll try to find out why so many polls got the presidential election so wrong. Those stories next on Arizona Horizon.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Arizona PBS, members of your PBS station. Thank you.
Good evening and welcome to Arizona Horizon. I'm Ted Simons. Yesterday's election is in the books with results that caught many off guard. But at official watch parties in downtown Phoenix, the reaction was met with a commitment to move forward.
Well, I think that it's going to be very interesting to work with a President Trump. I know that I have my agenda of issues that I want to work on. I know that he has given a set of policy issues and he's listed them that actually kind of coincide with some of my issues, everything from regulatory and tax reform. So I'm excited. I think I'm hoping that he'll do everything that he said he'll do.
Let me just say this. If God does give us a victory tonight, I pray that all of us will be dedicated to making sure that we use it to bring this country back from the brink.
I think it's important for many Republicans that will win tonight to see that nationally we are a party for everyone, and that's a big challenge for us, unifying a party and a message that we need to carry nationally.
I love Arizona. I really believe in Arizona. This is not the end, this is just the beginning. All right, let's do it. Thank you.
And here now to take a closer look at last night's results and what they mean for the state and the country, Stan Barnes, founder and president of Copper State Consulting, and political consultant John Laredo. Good to have you both here. Thanks for joining us.
Good to be here.
All right, let's take a 30,000-foot view and then crash land as we see fit. What happened last night?
Well, we are all privileged to be living in a moment of national history that will be read by all our progeny from now until the end of time, perhaps. I mean, that's a big boast. And there's a lot of hyperbole going around. But this was truly historic, an earthquake, and perhaps the greatest upset in American politics. Everybody has their own Monday morning quarterback on the thing, but I believe that it was really not left versus right. It wasn't even outsider versus insider. It was a cultural clash where the Hollywood elite, the governing class, were against an unlikely billionaire who connected with working men and women and spoke their language, and that's what played out.
What did you see playing out last night?
Hard to tell. I mean, I think this will probably be the most studied election ever. I mean, I will probably see more money putting into figuring out what happened than actually put into polling, trying to figure out what was going to happen. I think it was a mix of a whole bunch of different things. I mean, when you look at all the different segments of the electorate that were with Trump and who weren't, they're just different. They're different groups of people. I think, from a Democratic point of view, from a Latino point of view, it's scary. I mean, there were a lot of different issues playing out, but just the open racism is pretty shocking and pretty terrifying, quite frankly. So I think everybody's really kind of buckled down for a pretty rough 4 years on our side.
As far as where we go from here, I was all set with all my questions to Republicans about what happens to the party now. How are you going to fix what's broken? What's going to happen now with a party that has a president, has Congress, will have a Supreme Court choice here coming? I mean, rolling in clover here.
Yeah, call me crazy, but when I heard Paul Ryan today speak, I actually thought, you know what, these guys might end up getting along, which is a big statement for any executive and legislative branch, even if they are in the same party. What the challenge is going to be that Trump really is not a Republican, he's an independent, and he will do what he wants to do. He's going to find out he can't do everything, and he needs a Congress, and so he needs to work with the Republican leadership. But it seemed to me, given Trump's really, really well-delivered victory speech, what Paul Ryan said today, how the former presidents all called Trump, all the former nominees called Trump, it just felt like the party was healing itself up right there.
What about the Democratic Party? Day after.
I think a lot of shock. There are segments within the Democratic Party as well. I mean, there just are. I think you're going to find a lot of people who are looking at the party and thinking that there need to be some really big, deep changes within the party moving forward.
Does the party move further left? Does the party move further center? I mean, there are a ton of Reagan Democrats who became Trump Democrats last night. What does the party do?
I think the party needs to be more populist, quite frankly. It needs to embrace the issues that matter to most Americans. But also, look, the party has to recognize, who is changing the Democratic Party. Latinos and people of color in general are becoming a bigger and bigger piece of the pie in Democratic politics, but still represent a very small portion of the people actually running the party.
It's interesting.
That has to change.
It's interesting to me that that Hillary underperformed Barack Obama when it comes to the various minority vote. She underperformed with black votes and with brown voters and Asian voters, and that's there's some meaning there. I think it's her the candidate is what it probably
with
is.
Her gender?
No, not her gender.
You don't think that was a factor
No,
at
no.
all?
It might have been on the margin, but I think it was more her terrible imperfections as a candidate and the scandal, the lack of energy, the lack of enthusiasm that haunted her from the moment she got in, almost beat by a leftist socialist guy. Trump's energy never waned, and he did as well with Latino voters as Romney did. And he did better with the black vote. And so Trump managed to put together his own coalition. He won counties in Ohio that Obama won by 60%.
Exactly. Let's take a look at the results here in Arizona as far as the presidential race is concerned. Again, as far as the gender issue, other factors here, did you see those at play in this election?
I think Arizona is different than the country at large. What happened here was just different. The race is going to be, look, there are still 670,000 provisional ballots that are left outstanding. Those are going to break left, and when all is said and done, Trump will have only won this state by a couple of percentage points at best. That is not good news for the Democratic or for the Republican Party in Arizona, because that goes against the trend nationally. And so, that's a really big issue. I mean, it's big for Democrats on our side to have made progress. In a variety of different races. I mean, it was not a bad night for Democrats.
Do you agree with that? Not a bad night for Democrats?
No, I don't agree with it. It was a good night for Republicans all the way around. They held the U.S. Senate. They held the House. Now have the presidency. We in Arizona, as Republicans, maintained our position in the state Senate. We might have lost a single House seat, and so and our congressional delegation stayed in its 5-4. Balance. So it wasn't a good night for Democrats.
Let's take a look at the Senate race, John McCain and Ann Kirkpatrick. What happened to Ann Kirkpatrick here? I mean, obviously there weren't as many coattails from Hillary Clinton as some would have expected, but still in all, this was not even close.
National money. National money did not play here the way that it needed to play here in order to win. Unless you have that money to go up on the air and do all the things you need to do, it's not going to be a close race. She fell behind relatively early and was not able to catch up.
As far as Maricopa County is concerned, Stan, we do have a new sheriff in town. Paul Penzone. Finally, someone has defeated Sheriff Joe Arpaio. Took a while, took a lot, but this was not even close.
No, it wasn't. I'm really proud of Paul Penzone. I have high expectations for him. He has done himself well. He traversed some very difficult ground. He took on an international figure who had $10 million to smear him. I think it's a combination of Penzone's courage and willingness to fight, but also the real fatigue that my party, the Republican Party, had with Sheriff Joe, because the joke says is now a regular Joe, not Sheriff Joe, and that fatigue finally undercut him.
Fatigue and a concerted effort again to get. Why did this effort succeed?
Because there were over 150,000 new Latino registrations in Arizona, the overwhelming majority of them in Maricopa County. There was the biggest field campaign in Arizona history on the ground in Maricopa County getting Latinos out to vote, and they voted in record numbers. Every month in Maricopa County, 2,000 Latinos turn voting age, every month. And that's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. That effort combined with everything else is why Sheriff Joe lost, and he's not the only one. You've got Adrian Fontes that looks like he's going to win against Helen Purcell. Those are changing demographics, and it's a changing electorate, and it's not going right, it's going left.
I think to be fair to the Arpaio tea leaves that we're reading here afterward, George Soros spent $2 million to defeat him. He also spent $1 million to try to defeat Bill Montgomery. I don't know why George Soros is spending money in Arizona, but it's his right, evidently, and it's the law of the land. But Arpaio would not have been beaten if it weren't for $2 million to remind voters of the fatigue of which I'm talking about.
You agree with that?
He spent $2 million. Arpaio spent, he had $12 million, the overwhelming majority of it, from out of state. So it's not exactly even. Arpaio had way more money from out of state than George Soros did. But there was a small percentage of persuadable voters in Maricopa County, maybe 20% at the most. Not enough to give Penzone a win. It was the Latino base coming out that gave him that win.
We just saw the recorder's results there. It looks like Helen Purcell will no longer be the Maricopa County recorder. Let's keep it moving here. Congressional District 1, Tom O'Halloran against Paul Babeu. Everyone agreed that Babeu was a flawed candidate, but he still survived the primary. Was this a little surprising as far as the margin of victory for O'Halloran?
No, I don't think so. I predicted on this very show that as much as Republicans would like that district to be a Republican district, it's not a Republican district. It's a Democratic district. Ann's in it now, Ann Kirkpatrick. She defeated Republicans in it before. And Paul Babeu just had too much baggage, unfortunately. He's not a bad person, but politics is a not beanbag, as they say, and it's a rough sport. And there was national money. There was a lot of money spent against him, and once the narrative was set about him being a bad guy, he couldn't overcome it.
Moving further south, Congressional District 2, is that, I know Democrats keep thinking that's in play, in the same way the Republicans think CD1 is in play. Is it the same equation there? Is it just simply a Republican district now?
I think both are competitive to a certain extent. But both have an edge, right? Even Democrats have an edge up north, and Republicans have an edge in that district. And so, at least in performance. And so, again, not a whole lot of this was not a nationally targeted race. If you're going to unseat an incumbent, you have to have national money behind you to do that. And that money was not there for Matt Hines.
I was surprised because Martha, Congresswoman McSally, only won by a few hundred votes last time. And I thought it'd be a lot closer than it ended up being. So she with this victory, and Hines is a good candidate, she's going to probably scare off serious opposition for the next round, because this is the election Democrats should have done better in that district.
Prop 205, the legalization of marijuana, should that have done better, considering how well it did around the country?
It did really well everywhere else. In this case, I think the campaign got off to a very late start. Quite frankly, there was a lot of disarray on the front end of this thing with competing groups, and then they got together, then they broke apart, and they got back together. I mean, it was a mess. And so, then you had late money come in against it, and I think they just overwhelmed the pro side.
That late money was, in large part, raised by Doug Ducey, who spent some political capital to raise the kind of funds necessary to make the case. I'm proud of him for doing it. I was on the no side of it. I'm glad it failed. I don't think it's the right policy. But it is interesting that Arizona managed, with our libertarian streak, to be a no on that proposition.
Yeah, when so many others said yes. I want to get to the Corporation Commission race, because again, we had 5 candidates running for 3 spots here, and there was a lot of money flowing in a lot of different directions, but it looks like in the end plays out, John, Republicans in, Democrats no.
APS dumped a lot of money into that race. I mean, that's what it comes down to. There was just not a whole lot of money. There were, I think, Mundell IEs were up on TV. But when you dump that much money into the race, they were the biggest spender in the races. They typically are. And when you've got that much money and you're going up against an electorate that swings right anyway, it's just a matter of math.
What did you see there, Stan?
I saw 2 very large corporations spending a great deal of money in that race. It was over $6 million spent by Pinnacle West, Arizona Public Service, and on the other side of the ledger, Solar City and their leadership in their industry on rooftop solar issues. There's a very dry but very important debate playing itself out at the Corporation Commission about how much money it's going to cost to put those on your roof, how much you pay to service the infrastructure that keeps your lights on in the dark or when the clouds come. And so $6 million on the ACC is a record, and it's an earthquake in political consulting world or politics in Arizona, but we didn't hear it because of this other thing that happened called President Trump.
All right, last question here before you guys go. Much talk before the election of Arizona turning blue. Is Arizona turning blue?
I think by 2020, Arizona turns blue. And I think by 2018 for the statewide elections, you will see at least another 350,000 registered Latinos for that election. It's going to happen. And so I think it's not a matter of persuasion anymore, it's a matter of turnout. And that turnout will continue to swing left. The Republicans can spend money and squeeze out another election and another election, but that is simply not going to be possible heading into the future.
What do you think?
Yeah, there are some parts of that I agree with. I mean, I'm not blind to the demographic changes that are happening in Arizona, but I'm not willing to say just because we have a greater Latino population, that means we have a greater Democratic population. I think you can't use a broad brush on that giant growing sector of our society. So John and I have been doing this together for a couple decades, and this has been the theme, that the Latino vote is coming and it's going to turn Arizona blue. It's been a couple decades of that talk. It still hasn't happened. It maybe the slope is longer and it's going to take another couple of decades, but it's not here yet.
All right. Great analysis. Good to have you both here. Thanks for joining us.
Get the inside scoop on what's happening at Arizona PBS. Become an insider. You'll receive weekly updates on the most anticipated upcoming programs and events. Get the insider delivered to your email inbox. Visit azpbs.org to sign up today.
Last night's presidential results came as a shock to those following the many polls that showed Donald Trump trailing Hillary Clinton in important swing states. That disconnect did not go unnoticed by Republicans.
If any of you have pollsters as friends, be nice to them because they're going to be looking for new jobs tomorrow.
And here now to talk about why the polling data was so off the mark is apparently still employed local pollster Mike O'Neill. Thanks for coming in.
Hi.
You got a lot of splaining to do here. Why did so many state polls, the national polls were relatively close here because she's got the popular vote. So the state polls, though, some of these things were way off. What's going on here?
Let me tell you the honest truth. We don't know. And anybody who has a glib explanation at this point, that is speculation. I can tell you that the profession will go through a whole investigation on this with some pretty serious folks, but don't expect an answer in less than 6 months. I could throw out speculations. The shy voter theory, though I didn't notice the Trump people being especially shy.
Talk about the shy vote. What is the shy voter?
Shy voter means that people are reluctant to admit that they were voting for Trump, and so they said otherwise. And I think personally, the big one that I look at is a long-term one, not so sexy, but we've had problem. I've been polling for 40 years, and every year there's 1 or 2% lower response rate, meaning the percentage of people that you call that are willing to talk to you. Well, cumulative over 40 years, that's devastating. And what that means is we start out with a probability sample. It's unclear the extent to which we end up with a probability sample after years and years. Now, 2008, it still worked anyway, even though there were problems then. 2012, it worked on the nose. This year, in a whole lot of places, it didn't work. It may have just crossed a threshold.
I noticed that the USC poll, University of Southern California poll, getting a lot of attention because they seemed to get it right. They were as close to getting it right as anyone. They used robocalls, they used the internet, and that the focus was anonymous information so that the shy voters or those who just didn't want to tell someone face to face that I think I might vote for Trump would go ahead and speak honestly. Talk about that.
We don't know about the anonymous aspect yet. No, this theory has been touted for years, but go back to Bradley effects and all this other kind of stuff, and usually has been proven not to be the case. Maybe there's some rare instance when it is. But to me, I don't think the LA Times poll, that had another flaw that I think was fatal. Even if they got it right, somebody can do the wrong thing and guess right. They had weighted to, this is getting down in the weeds, but they weighted to a variable, attitudes, okay, as opposed to weighting to a known parameter like sex or age or party registration, not party preference. Party preference is an attitude that changes as the campaign evolves. Party registration is a fixed thing at a given point in time.
So when you're saying you're weighting towards something, you're skewing toward that to try to get a more honest reflection.
Yeah, so if you do a registered voter sample, it's very simple. You want to get Republicans, Democrats, and others in identical proportion to that exists in the population. But you have a known parameter. If I do that by a question like, well, which party do you prefer, which is what they did, you can't wait to that because that's shifting sand. In a Republican year, more people will call themselves Republicans, even though they don't switch their registration.
All right, so perhaps the USC format, the formatics were flawed to a certain degree. They still got it right, and a lot of folks didn't get it right. And now there's going to, I'm sure, be some conference on high somewhere among all you statisticians to find out what's going to be discussed, what's going to be looked at.
The details. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that you will have whole conferences and people spend years doing. A lot of stuff that would be in documents this thick dissecting this. I mean, this is not something that you can do in an afternoon by just running a couple of tables.
Well, you mentioned again that something changed this year that was perhaps on the cusp of changing in previous years.
Something that's been incrementally changing for 40 years. It's getting a little worse every year.
So what happens in 2 years? What happens in 4 years?
Well, that trend I don't think gets reversed. We hopefully learn something from this instance, and there could be some tweak in methodology. The fundamental problem is this. You need to start with a comprehensive list of people that are in a universe, okay? That's called a sampling frame. You can do that for the telephone. You can do that with registered voter list. There is no list of comprehensive commuter emails with everybody is in there once and nobody's in there multiple times. That's the problem with computer stuff. And if you think you have a problem getting people to respond to you over the phone, what percentage of random emails that you send out do you suppose? It's a fraction of what you get over the phone. So we have a flawed method on the one hand, and every alternative that's demonstrably worse. We're in a tough place.
I was going to say a tough place, and something's going to have to give there because people need to know what these trends are, not necessarily for politics, although that's interesting and it's good to know, but in all manner of things. Polling is important.
You know, there's still a lot of stuff you can do. If you're off in your estimation of a phenomena by 4%, for most things that isn't going to matter. Okay, for elections it's critical. But if we want to know what groups feel this way and what arguments and what things are concerned about, you can tolerate a certain lack of total precision. Because when we're asking attitude questions, it's the question anyway that determines. Voting is a unique case. Who are you going to vote for is a relatively simple concept. But how do you feel about national defense spending or abortion or you name it? Those are attitudes that are very, very difficult to pin down. And there's a lot of slippage in the measurement.
Okay, so with that in mind, everyone is saying that politics, as we've known politics, has changed, perhaps forever, but certainly for now. Has polling, as we've known polling, changed forever?
I think it's more evolutionary than that. people who are running for office, believe me, they're all going to hire pollsters next time. They might not take the numbers to the second decimal place, literally, but you still want to know where you stand. You want to know what arguments matter and a whole host of other things. And that's not going to sell. And your alternative is go talk to 3 people in a bar and make conclusions about the public. I think we're going to beat that.
All right. I don't know. I think I'm going with the people in the bar. Mike, good to see you. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate it. Thursday on Arizona Horizon, a Horizon in Focus special. We'll visit with renowned architect Will Bruder as he talks about his art and his craft inside one of his own creations, the Burton Barr Library. Will Bruder in Focus on the next Arizona Horizon. And then Friday, we will have a special Veterans Day edition of Arizona Horizon, so don't miss that either. I'm Ted Simons. Thanks so much for joining us. You have a great evening.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Arizona PBS, members of your PBS station. Thank you.